Welcome to the FrontForumFocus podcast. Join us on this fascinating conversation with Paul Zilberman, an anesthesia specialist from Israel who has traveled the world and is passionate about space exploration.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. I traveled a lot of places in the world, including your country, Kenya. Not all the world, but I hope I will be able to visit as much as possible. We have a wonderful planet, actually.
Yes. So, can you tell us about your background and how you became interested in medicine?
Okay, that's a very nice story. Somehow it seemed that nothing happens, so everything happens for a reason. I'm in anesthesia for more than 20 years.
Yes.
A few years ago, on a local meeting, international local meeting, a guest from Brazil showed me a white piece of paper the size of a credit card with some white strips on it, and asked me, "Do you know what this is?" I said, "Well, I don't know. It can be anything." He said, "This is a sample of a CO2 absorber based on lithium used only in space." And I said, "What's so different about it?" He says, "It has an absorptive capacity roughly 5 times more than the usual CO2 absorbers we are using in the operating room. And but more than that, by the way it is structured, it can be recycled somehow." So that lit my curiosity, because in anesthesia, we work with the CO2 absorbers and everything. And I started digging more and more. At some point, I visited the manufacturer in the US, and I understood the process, and I got deeper and deeper into this subject. It say that the appetite comes with the food. So I started reading more and more, and obviously, as anesthesiologists, we deal with oxygen, we deal with metabolism, we deal with CO2 and scrubbers and all this stuff. And obviously, I got attracted by the subject and started reading not only about that, but how the physiology changes into space. Up to not long ago, I knew what everybody knows about the bones and demineralization and the astronauts coming back on Earth and fractured and everything. Reading more and more, I understood about the fluid shifts in the body. There is no up and down. The changes in the heart function and morphology. And I don't, it's not neither the time nor the place to develop all the subjects, but imagine you have those small stones in our inner ears that give us a sense of equilibrium, and they are moved by gravity. There is not such a thing in space. It's it's like opening a door. If you get it into another room, there are 2 other doors. You open each other door, there are 3 other doors behind each door, and you go deeper and deeper and deeper. It just catches you like a magnet. So this is how I got into this issue. And probably even with all these things that happened, I wouldn't have been here today if many years ago I wouldn't be attracted by another subject of anesthesia called low-flow anesthesia. Showing how you start building your anesthesia program with volatiles, starting with the metabolic oxygen consumption, how you follow the kinetics of the gases, the uptake, how the gases are moving in your body, what is a mitochondria, what is ATP, how you calculate the oxygen delivery you need to give to one patient on another. And all these things, I think, got connected at some point. So this is how I got here today to be here where I am.
Paul, can you tell us some of the exciting projects that you're working on?
Okay. Since I'm an anesthesiologist, my concerns are about anesthesia in space. Basically, I started with something else an article describing CPR in space. CPR is a very complex problem, not only on Earth, but in space it's even more difficult. On Earth, you have the gravitation, you have the ground supporting the victim. You always have the possibility to ride over the victim and do everything we know. In space, there is no such a thing. It's all different. You need different positions because you make this classic movement, you push the victim away, and by the Newton laws, you are pushed in another way. So it has to be different. But at a more technical point, I read about the airway management in space, especially intubation. Well, on Earth, we know that in elective cases, you can use supraglottic device. In cases where you have risks of regurgitation and aspiration of gastric contacts into the stomach, you need to intubate. Otherwise, you can use supraglottic device, laryngeal mask, iGel, and all the other stuff. Now, the problem in space is exactly like on CPR. You have nothing to hold on to it. You float, the patient floats, so you need to do something to secure the airway, so-called secure as much as possible with the easiest possibilities that you have. So the best there are articles on that are the supraglottic devices. Okay, so I'm working now on such a supraglottic device that would allow not only the insertion the way we use it, but also the insertion of a nasogastric or orogastric zonda or drain, also in the lack of gravitation that would require for the anesthesiologist the least effort to perform this maneuver. And this is what I'm working on exactly now. It's time consuming, it's dreaming, it's money eating, but it's a passion.
That I think you have mentioned some challenges that you are going through in this space environment. Yes. So can you tell us, can you go deeper and explain how the lack of gravity affects the administration of anesthesia?
I don't know how it doesn't affect. Listen, basically we have three types of anesthesia: general anesthesia, regional anesthesia, and local regional anesthesia, like locals. Neuraxial anesthesia, sorry. So general anesthesia, we have volatile anesthetics, gases that we give to the patient. IV anesthesia is whatever we give to the vein, and local regional, we have all kinds of substances we put in the spine or the epidural space, or peripheral neural blocks. Volatile anesthesia, at least during space travel, it's a no-no. Because once the anesthesia is finished, the gases must be evacuated somewhere. On Earth, we have the scavenging system. They go out in the atmosphere somewhere. But you are in a closed space. You are in a cabin. You have no way. I mean, you can use an active system of venting them outside, but this venting system needs energy. And in space, of course, we all know the picture with those huge solar panels that are giving energy to all the systems in the space in the cabin. But the energy is very, very scarce. So the challenge is you cannot use this energy for something else than the minimum you need for what you need. So if you can avoid the system that would require energy to push substances out, that you can do without. Second, imagine that the volatile anesthesia, no matter how the machine is tight or perfect, still has leaks. So until those substances go out, the rest of the crew would also be exposed to these anesthetic gases. It's difficult. Second, the second one is a total IV anesthesia. that's very easy to do because you have all kind of syringe pump, infusion pumps, and you can monitor everything. Yet they are also energy consumptive because they need something to move them. Using IV anesthesia, you need also, like on Earth, some monitoring on the brain to see the depth of anesthesia. You call it BIS, you call it entropy, whatever. You need another machinery. Local regional anesthesia, spinal and epidural can be done. Still, someone has to hold the patient and needs to hold you too, because you're also floating, and you need to handle the needle very, very with high precision. If everybody's floating, then it's a little bit of a problem. Now, the peripheral nerve blocks are probably the best, because you inject a single. You can do it with catheters, it becomes more complicated, but theoretically, you use an ultrasound machine, you locate whatever nerve you want to block or plexus you want to block, you inject and finish story. However, because of the fluid shift, all the body becomes one. You don't have lower part of the body with fluids and the other part of the body of the regular like we have on Earth. So those fluids are modifying the distance between the skin and the nerve you need to block. There is also some degree of tissue edema. We'll need probably to make a new branch in local regional anesthesia called local regional anesthesia for space travel, because the tissues are modified. Everything is a little bit modified. And also there are modifications even in the structure of the neuron membrane, the axon, because of the changes in osmolarity and ions and everything. So even our local anesthetics might not work as well as, not as well or as bad, but would not work the way we are used to them on Earth. So it's I have the feeling we are only starting to understand these things, but it's a challenge, and we as humans we have to take this challenge.
Yeah. So with these challenges, you have worked with astronauts and space agencies. So can you tell us about?
More or less. I maybe you have seen on the internet, on the WhatsApp. I had the great honor to meet personally the first and only so far Romanian astronaut engineer, Dumitru Prunaru. He's actually now a retired general in the Romanian army. But 40 years ago, when he flew for 1 week in the space with Leonid Popov, I was still in Romania at that time. You imagine it was a very, very, very big pride for me as a young doctor and a Romanian citizen, and it still is. And we had the chance to meet again after 40 years. We had one wonderful, wonderful evening together, or dinner. Me asking him things related to space engineering, related to medicine, and he asking me questions about medicine, how it has progressed in space. Just to give you a small glimpse, we spoke in the beginning about those CO2 absorbers used in space. They come like cartridges. You can just read the history of the Apollo 13 and you'll understand exactly the issue. Now they have the size, more or less, cartridges, more or less like a bottle of Coca-Cola. I mean, a cylinder, more or less the same dimension. He told me that when they flew 40 years back, he showed me they were like barrels, like this, because the technology was not so much developed. And one other question, just to understand how we need to make the mental switch. We all know from airplane flights, there is a pressure difference between the inside of the airplane and the outside, and what happens if there is decompression and everything. And I said, listen, how are the space shuttles wall built so they resist such a big pressure? And he said, there is not such a big pressure after all. It is 1 atmosphere, because this is the pressure inside the cabin.
1 atmosphere. That's all. In the tires of our automobiles, we have 2 or 3 times more than that. Nothing happens. Then you start understanding how much thinking is behind the construction, and we are used. This is one, by the way, this is one of the traps that we always fall in until we get used to it. We tend to judge or to compute or think of future things or things in space based on what we are used on Earth. So I was used to those airplanes with the decompression, and then you see the film Airport and people jumping out of the broken window like sausages, because there is a dynamic pressure and a static pressure, but in space there is only 1 atmosphere difference. And by speaking about atmosphere, until the shuttle emissions, exactly because of pressure difference, the environment, I cannot say atmosphere because atmosphere is only on Earth, the surrounding gases that the astronauts were living in was 100% oxygen. So that the atmosphere, the pressure inside the cabin were 1/3 of the ground level pressure. Now, since there were several accidents with the too rich oxygen environment, Apollo 1, 3 astronauts perished. Now, in space shuttles, they use the same atmospheric pressure, 760 millimeters of mercury, but with a much lower oxygen concentration. Well, actually, on Earth, we have 21%. In space, for different reasons, they have 30%, but at least not, but anyway, not 100%. So now you get the proportion of what happens in space, how it happens. So more or less, this is how I got in contact, not only with Dumitru Prunaru personally, but I'm in correspondence with a very dear friend and colleague of ours from New Zealand, Dr. Kara Bakal, that wrote also some chapters in some space medicine books. And all along the road, I corresponded with different people, not necessarily astronauts, but somehow related to space engineering and medicine. And I'm 62 now. And my brain and heart and soul feel like a 14 or 13-year-old young boy, enjoying every day I'm reading something about it and understanding how we as humans started something and how is still more to do in front of us.
What advancement do you see in space anesthesia in the next few years?
What I can see in the space anesthesia, it's basically in the issue of machinery. One of the biggest problems is monitoring, because here on Earth we have monitoring with all the electronics and the miniaturization and everything. Still, you have boxes with screens and everything that you put on the anesthesia machine. They have a weight, they have machinery, they have wires. It's complicated. What I see in the future of anesthesia in space, at least from the standpoint of machinery, are virtual screens that do not exist like a plastic or like a glass. You just see them in front of your eyes maybe with special glasses, I don't know. And you see, like in a metaverse, like put it this way, and you see everything in front of your eyes, and with moving your hand in front of an imaginary dial, you can change anything you want in the anesthesia process. Also, I can see a very big development in space medicine. At least for now, you don't have the luxury to send on every mission a very trained anesthesiologist. That's an issue well known in literature. So you might have an anesthesiologist in the proximity for the moment on Earth that could control the anesthesia process in space. One other aspect, not necessarily related to anesthesiology, but also to anesthesiology, if we are already thinking about deep space, we are talking for the moment about Mars. Is the problem of the time it takes for the message to get from Earth to Mars. At least for now, it's roughly about 20 minutes. Now, imagine you control something from the Earth to Mars. Something happened with the patient. It takes 20 minutes until something is wrong, gets to Earth. 20 minutes back, the patient is dead by now. So I would see some artificial intelligence brain already in the space shuttle or whatever vehicle you put it that understands automatically why blood pressure goes down, reacts, why blood pressure goes out, reacts, why the patient is hypovolemic and reacts. So this all kind of artificial intelligence and especially machine learning will be there on place and all the time the system is uploaded with another knowledge and another knowledge and another knowledge. So at some point it would act almost automatically, independently.
How do you think space anesthesia and space exploration will benefit the medical industry?
The medicine on Earth?
Yes.
Not only medicine and not only anesthesia. They say space and Earth, it's like a highway with double direction. A lot of the innovations and inventions done in space are used on Earth. Speaking about telemedicine, this is exactly the place where it started being applied. The first astronauts had ECG pads and other systems that were sent to Earth to be followed in real time. Now you have an ambulance bringing a patient, a road accident or something, bringing the patient to the ER. Already in the ER, they have all the data, all the vital signs of the patient coming in. Many years ago, they built special chairs for every astronaut in order to prevent pressures built when they were taking off or landing, because 5G, 6G, 7G, tremendous pressure. They developed this special foam called Tempur that is now used on every mattresses, also at home, but also in hospitals to prevent pressure sores. And something even more related to medicine in general, not only anesthesia, the insulin pump. It was developed especially for not as insulin, but as an infusion device as small as possible to deliver medications just in case for astronauts. And the list can go on and on and on and on. So this is, again, a double-way street.
So you are a recent attendee of the event why space governance must go hand in hand with space innovation.
There is no other way.
Yes. So, what do you think about the governance and how the government is getting involved in the industry of space and medicine?
I think in many economical directions, not only space, both the private sector and the government sectors understood that neither of them has enough financial and workman force and scientific power to do everything. Now, for example, we have it under our nose these days. At NASA working together with Elon Musk. One is the government agency, another one is the space agency. I don't know if I'm not sure I'm not wrong, but some astronauts have been recently been brought back from the damage, part of the damage ISS by SpaceX rocket. So they are joining forces, and I think that at some point this should be the right direction in many other economical aspects. The governments come with the regulatory system, with the administration directors. They come with the requirements. Listen, we have a program to do this ABC. We want to put a man on Mars. We want to build colonies on Mars. We want to send. Okay, we have the direction. We have the regulation. We have some money. Now someone else has to be together with us and make a team. And this is how things work. You know, it's like a mother and a father working together to raise the same.
Yes. So, how do you balance your work on anesthesia and other interests, such as travel?
I don't know how to answer exactly to this question because I like to travel, but since we are in the era as with any smartphone, you are virtually in another place of the world. I'm connected to anything. So whenever I'm performing anesthesia, I'm looking at the monitor and think what would happen in space. I give fluids to the patient and I think, wow, what would happen if this and that and that? I'm thinking of CPR. I'm trying in every procedure that I'm doing to find the best ways to perform the most economical, technically and physically, the most economical ways to perform a certain procedure, with the thinking that I need to train myself to perform as if I were in the most violent or most difficult environment. So I'm training myself every day to do, I'm putting patients to sleep for pilonidal or rectal surgery already face down, and I make the LMA in, thinking, well, I'm doing this for more than 10 years and I'm driving people crazy here. But at some point, I said, listen, I'm in space, an astronaut is like this, and I'm like this, and I cannot move, and I need to do something. My hand already knows what to do instinctually. So it's a mix, it's a passion, and at some point, I don't differentiate between them. You feel you are in space with every breath you take.
Some interesting question is that there's a big advancement in technology. So with things like AI and a lot of research going on with, let's say, NASA, ISS. So how do you keep up to date with the latest research in your industry?
Okay, I'll show you something. I think you'll be able to see it. There is an application. Let me show. You see it? Okay.
Oh, I'm seeing part of it. NASA.
Okay. Anyway, there is an application on. I have an iPhone, but I think there is also on Android. A NASA application that you can download, and you receive all the time also photos from NASA in real time, NASA television, speaking about people, missions, everything you need to know, history. Yes. It's everything there. So you have all NASA in your palm. Let's see.
Yes.
Oh, you see it now?
Yes, I can see that.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so it can be downloaded. It's free of charge, and believe me, for those people that love this kind of things, it's a mental enjoyment to see how we as humans can do what we do.
Yes. So I'm seeing that the time is running out. Like we have 30 seconds. What advice can you tell someone who wants to pursue this career?
Dream with your head in the skies, but keep your feet on the ground and never stop dreaming.
I think that's it for our time.
How do you say Asante Sana?
Asante Sana, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for everybody who attended here.